Have you ever wondered why she says you're too good and still walks away? I have a friend named David, the kind of man everyone respects. Honest, polite, a good job, always listens, kind to everyone. He loved one woman for 2 years. They traveled together, shared everything, laughed every weekend. He never once hurt her. And then one day she looked at him and said, "You're an amazing man. But I don't feel the same anymore. No fight, no betrayal, just those words. I don't feel it." David fell into silence. He stopped smiling, started doubting himself. He turned to me one night and asked, "Do women not want a good man anymore? Or is being good simply not enough?" I've heard this question more times than I can count, not just from David, but from hundreds of men. Here's the truth. Women don't leave because you're good. They leave when they can't. Feel a deeper emotional connection. Even if you've given them everything, there are things women rarely say out loud. But they're always there. Subtle psychological switches, invisible triggers, that, if touched the wrong way, can undo even the deepest love. And in this video, I want to share with you 10 subtle emotional mechanisms in women, the kind that attract them or quietly push them away, principles to help you not just understand women better, but become a calm, magnetic man they can't easily replace, and how Stoic philosophy helps you protect your value even when everything else changes. If you've ever been rejected without a clear reason, if you've ever felt tested in ways you couldn't explain, if you've ever heard, "You're too good for me," as if that was somehow a mistake, then this video is for you. This isn't about manipulation. It's not about winning or playing the game. It's about understanding. It's about growth. It's about building real, lasting connection, because sometimes understanding is all it takes to stop losing what matters most. Number 1, emotional stability beats physical strength. Women don't always choose the strongest man in the room. They choose the calmest one in the storm. I once witnessed a moment I'll never forget at an outdoor party. She was beautiful, smart, confident, standing beside her boyfriend. Tall, athletic, loud, full of energy. He looked like he had it all, until a small thing happened. A waiter accidentally spilled a glass of water onto their table, and just like that, he lost control. His voice rose. His face turned red. He scolded the waiter harshly, not because his shirt got wet, but because his ego did. She didn't say anything, but the look in her eyes said enough. Less than 2 weeks later, I heard they broke up. A few months after that, I saw her again, this time with someone else. He was smaller, dressed simply, calm energy. In a crowded cafe, a little boy ran past and spilled hot coffee on his foot. He looked down, smiled, and said, "It's okay. He's just a kid." Then he bent down, comforted the frightened child, and went on with his day. I watched her eyes. This time she didn't just look at him with love. She looked at him with deep respect. Not the kind of love that needs to be shown, the kind that's earned. Why is this so important? Because in a woman's world, emotion is the primary language, and the man she trusts most isn't the one with the hardest punch. It's the one who doesn't punch at all when emotions run high. Emotional stability means the world doesn't decide your mood. It's when someone criticizes you and you don't shout back. It's when she's crying and you don't try to fix her. You just sit there, stay present, let her feel. To her, that's strength. More than looks, more than money, more than promises. A friend of mine is a firefighter. He told me, when you're surrounded by flames, chaos, and screams, the best leader isn't the fastest or loudest. It's the one who stays calm. That calm saves lives. Same in love. When a woman sees you steady through emotional storms, she thinks, if he can stay grounded in this, he can protect me when life falls apart. The lesson? Don't try to impress her. Train to become the man she can lean on, not just when things go well, but when they don't. Because in the end, she doesn't need a knight to show off to the world. She needs a fortress to come home to. And here's the paradox. The calmer you are. The less you chase, the more magnetic you become. Not because you're trying to be impressive, but because you don't need to try. And that leads us to the second truth. One of the most powerful psychological triggers in a woman's heart: scarcity equals value. Let's move to part 2. Number 2, scarcity equals value. What happens when you're always there, always giving, always caring, and she chooses the man who makes her wait? I have a friend named Mike. Mike loved deeply. He texted her every morning. Did you sleep well? He brought her food, drove her to work, checked in on every little thing. Whenever she posted a sad story, Mike was the first one to comfort her. When she needed help, he cancelled his schedule just to be by her side. He did everything from the heart. And one day she said, "You're a really good guy. I know that, but I don't feel that spark anymore." The man she chose instead was someone who barely texted first, was often too busy, sometimes disappeared for days. Mike couldn't understand. How could someone who's always there get overlooked for someone who barely shows up? Let me tell you a harsh truth, one that we all need to hear. People don't crave what's always available. The harder it is to reach, the more we value it. And that doesn't just apply to luxury items. It applies to your presence. When you're always ready, always responsive, you become obvious. But when you show up just enough, you become someone worth waiting for. Women, just like men, respond to perceived value. And if you're too predictable, too willing, too quick to give, you lose the power of scarcity, and scarcity creates gravity. I once knew a fitness coach, very calm, very focused. He didn't text a lot, but when he was with someone, he was fully present. He listened deeply. After that, he returned to his work, his mission, and women felt drawn to him, not because he played games, but because they could sense he doesn't need me to feel full, and that's exactly why I want to stay. The lesson: your value isn't in how much you give, it's in how clearly you show that you don't give everything to everyone all the time. Be busy with your mission. Don't answer every text instantly, not because you're cold, but because you're living a life with direction. And when you do show up, be fully there, because smart absence makes your presence unforgettable. And once you stop chasing, love to be chosen, and start becoming the kind of man who's worth staying for, you don't need to impress anymore. Your silence speaks. But presence isn't just behavior. It's energy. It's your voice, your eyes, the way you move, without saying a word. Which brings us to the next chapter: voice and presence. Masculinity you don't see, you feel. Number 3, voice and presence. Masculinity you don't see, you feel. He didn't raise his voice, didn't try to prove anything, but when he walked in, everyone noticed. I once attended a leadership workshop. There were about 20 men in the room, everyone trying to talk louder, crack jokes, make themselves noticed. Then one man walked in late. He wore a black shirt, average height, nothing flashy, no strong physical presence. And yet, something changed. He looked around, sat down and simply said, "Apologies. I just came from ops. Shall we begin?" The entire room went quiet, not because he shouted, not because he projected alpha energy, but because he spoke with stillness. A low, calm voice, slow pacing, intentional words. I glanced around. People sat straighter, focused, turned toward him, without even realizing it. Why? Because he didn't need to command the room. He already belonged in it. We live in a noisy world. Everyone talks fast, posts loudly, competes for attention. But in all that noise, the man who speaks less but with weight becomes the quiet center of gravity. Women don't just hear your words, they feel your energy. They hear your tone. Is it shaky or calm? They sense your pace. Are you rushed or grounded? They watch your eyes. Do you scatter or hold? Real masculinity doesn't need to prove itself. It's not in loud jokes or showing off. It's in presence, in restraint, in clarity. Let me give you an example. Two men text a woman. One says, "I miss you so much." "What are you doing? Text me, please." The other says, "You free tonight? If not, I'll catch up on work. We can talk later this week." Both want to connect, but one sounds anxious. The other sounds composed. Same intent, different energy. One pushes, the other pulls. Lesson: you don't need movie star looks. You don't need to be the loudest guy, but you do need presence, and presence is built from within. Slower breath, lower tone, steady eye contact. Silence. At the right time. Words that don't chase approval. When you walk into a room with calm, people notice. When you speak with conviction, people listen. And when you can sit in silence without needing to fill it, you become rare. And once you've mastered presence, there's something else you must learn, because even the strongest, calmest men, the ones who give deeply, love fully, stand tall, often forget one essential truth: you can love someone and still need to walk away. That's where we're going next. Number 4. Willingness to walk away when leaving protects your value. The most attractive man to a woman is the one who can walk away without shaking. I knew a man once, successful, mature, kind-hearted. He fell in love with a woman, fully. Whatever she needed, he gave. Whenever she got upset, he apologized, even when it wasn't his fault. Over time, she began to test him more, controlling his time, getting upset over small things, playing the silent game just to see how much he'd chase, and he stayed, explained, tried harder, told himself, if I just love her more, she'll finally feel safe. But one day, she left. Her reason: you're too good, but somehow I don't respect you like I used to. It sounds cruel, but it's not about cruelty, it's about value. Here's the paradox. When you're unwilling to walk away, you place your value beneath someone else's feet. People, especially women, don't trust endless tolerance. They respect a boundary. They feel safe when a man knows where he ends and someone else begins. A strong man isn't the one who holds on no matter what. It's the one who knows exactly when to let go, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. Let me give you another story. My friend Tom was in love once too, but after 6 months he realized something. She didn't respect his boundaries. They weren't aligned. So one day he looked at her gently and said, "I care about you, but I also care about myself." No shouting, no emotional games, just quiet clarity. She was shocked. She thought he'd beg, like the men before him. He didn't. 2 months later, she tried to come back. But Tom had moved on, and strangely enough, from that point forward, other women started noticing him more, because confidence leaves a scent, and peace speaks louder than neediness. Lesson: you don't need to win every relationship. You just need to stop losing yourself in them. A man who knows his value isn't afraid to lose someone who doesn't see it. If I have to sacrifice my self-respect to keep you, then this isn't love, it's dependency. And here's the strange part of life. When you no longer need someone to feel enough, that's when you become the man they want to stay with, because you're not orbiting their world. You have a mission, a direction, a reason bigger than them, and that's what we'll talk about next. Number 5, purpose over pleasure. When a man lives for something greater than himself, he didn't reply to her messages for 8 hours because he was fixing a machine for the blind. That's when she started falling for him. I once knew an engineer named Alex. He wasn't the best-looking guy, didn't have a charming voice, didn't send sweet texts all day long, but there was something about him. You couldn't ignore it. He had purpose. He worked on a project designing tools for the visually impaired. Every morning, he didn't scroll his phone. He walked straight to his workbench, eyes focused, calm, alive. There was something in his gaze, the kind of depth only found in men who are building something bigger than themselves. One day his girlfriend told me, I used to think I wanted a guy who was always there, always texting, always holding my hand. But now, I'm drawn to the way he lives, like he's chasing something bigger than me. Why does purpose attract more than looks or sweet gestures? Because people can feel it. When a man is being led by something higher, his presence says, I like you, I care for you, but I'm on a path. You're welcome to walk beside me. But you're not the destination. That's not cold. That's clarity, and clarity is magnetic. When a man lives with purpose, he doesn't get swayed by every emotion. He doesn't chase approval. He doesn't explain himself constantly. He becomes his own gravity. And the world starts to revolve. Around him, look at the men we quietly admire, the soldier who puts duty above comfort, the founder who builds for a cause, not fame, the teacher who shows up every day, no spotlight, no ego. They're not bad boys. They're not nice guys. They are purpose-driven men, and that, in the eyes of a mature woman, is the highest form of masculinity. When you stop letting feelings decide your day and let your mission lead the way, you become the most powerful version of yourself. You don't need to constantly be available. You don't need to ask, am I enough? You just wake up and walk your path. The path you were born to walk, and the right woman will see it and choose to walk with you. But even with a strong purpose, you're still human. You'll still have moments of weakness, moments where you want to break. And what separates a grounded man isn't that he never feels pain. It's how he shares his pain without losing his strength. That's where we're headed next. Number 6, controlled vulnerability. Selective softness is power, not weakness. He said, I'm going through something, but I'll be okay. And in that moment, she didn't see a man in need. She saw a man she could trust. I used to work with a man named Jason. He was calm, quiet, not the kind to complain. One evening after work, I found him sitting alone in the parking lot. Still, eyes tired. I walked over and gently asked, You okay? He sighed and replied, My mom's going through cancer treatment. Money's tight but I'm sorting things out. I'll be okay. Then he smiled. Not forced, not broken, just real. He never told anyone else. No office gossip, no post online. But in that moment, it was the first time I truly respected Jason. Months later, his girlfriend said something I never forgot. The moment I trusted him most was when he let me see his pain, without collapsing into it. Why is that so powerful? Because most of us grew up with the wrong message. Men don't cry. Never show weakness. Be strong all the time. But that's not stoicism. Stoicism doesn't mean hiding emotions. It means facing them without being ruled by them. There's nothing stronger than a man who can say, I'm struggling, but I'm still standing. No drama, no victimhood, no need for pity, just honesty and inner steadiness. Women don't need a stone wall. They need a man who can open the door without losing the foundation. Let's be clear. Here's the difference. A weak man says, I can't live without you. I'm lost. I'm falling apart. A strong man says, losing you would hurt, but I've been through storms before, and I know I'll stand again. Both feel pain, but one collapses into it. The other carries it with spine and soul, sharing. Your emotions doesn't make you less of a man. It makes you more human and more trustworthy. The most attractive man in the room isn't the one who never hurts. It's the one who knows how to hurt and still stand with clarity. Selective vulnerability builds connection. It shows that you're not hiding from who you are. You're embracing it with strength. And once you master the art of showing heart without losing frame, you'll face the next test. Even when you're kind, grounded, honest, some women will still push, not to break you, but to see if you're really as strong as you appear to be. And that's exactly what we're diving into next. Number 7, women test strength, don't react, respond with presence. She doesn't want to break you. She just wants to know, if the storm hits, will you still stand? My younger brother once came to me looking frustrated. He had been dating a woman for just a couple of months. Things had started beautifully, laughter, long texts, connection, but suddenly something changed. Some days she's so sweet. The next, she pulls away. She asks if I still love her, even though I've done nothing wrong. He said he didn't understand, so he tried harder, explained more, texted more, reassured her every time she felt distant, and the more he gave, the more she drifted. I looked at him and smiled. She's not asking for answers, she's looking for your center, because women don't always test with words. They test with silence, with mood, with emotion. She's not trying to hurt you, she's trying to see who you really are. When things stop being perfect, she wants to feel safe, not just in your arms, but in your presence, in your emotional gravity. She needs to know if she breaks down. Will you still be standing if she pulls away? Will you chase or will you hold the line when she questions your love? Will you defend or will you stay still? Not cold, not detached, but calm, grounded, unshaken. When you react with frustration, confusion, or need, she feels you crumble. When you respond with clarity, with patience, without trying to fix her, she feels your strength. I remember a conversation with a woman who said this: when he didn't try to fix me, when he just held space for me to feel, that's when I knew he was the real thing. Most men fail this test, not because they're bad, but because they panic, because they confuse emotional steadiness with emotional distance. They try too hard to make everything feel okay again. But sometimes what she needs most is simply to see that you can hold stillness without fear, without explanation. The moment you pass that test, she exhales, because she finally knows, I can fall apart. And he won't. But here's the truth most men never prepare for. You can only stay steady in moments like this when you've already made peace with rejection, because a man who's afraid to lose her will always try to prove himself, and a man who knows his worth never needs to. That's where we're going. Next, number 8. Confidence in rejection. When you walk away with peace, you show you're not easily replaced. She said, I don't think we're right for each other. He smiled, nodded, and said, I hope you find what you're looking for. Then he walked away and never looked back. I once witnessed a moment I'll never forget. A friend of mine, Chris, had been dating a woman, elegant, smart, independent. They had been seeing each other for about 3 months. Then, one quiet Sunday afternoon, she looked him in the eye and said, I don't think we're aligned. You're a great guy, but I'm not sure this is what I'm looking for. Chris paused. No panic, no why, no desperate words or cold silence. He just smiled softly and said, Thank you for being honest. I wish you well on your journey. Then he stood up, shook her hand like a gentleman, and walked away. 1 week later, she came back, but Chris didn't, because he understood something most men forget. Your value doesn't disappear just because someone else doesn't choose it. Rejection is a part of life and love. But how you handle rejection reveals who you really are. Most men panic when they're not chosen. They start asking, what did I do wrong? Wasn't I enough? What does he have that I don't? And these questions don't help. Not because you aren't good enough, but because when you chase answers, you give away your sense of self. The Stoic man sees rejection differently. He knows that rejection doesn't define him. It defines the other person's preference, their timing, their readiness. He understands that being rejected isn't a judgment of worth. It's feedback about fit. Think about a job interview. You get turned down. It doesn't always mean you're not capable. It might mean you didn't match the company culture, The timing wasn't right. They weren't ready for what you bring to the table. It's the same in relationships. Being rejected doesn't always mean you lack something. Sometimes it means you brought too much value to someone who wasn't ready to receive it. And that's why the ability to walk away calmly, clearly, is so powerful. It shows you're not owned by fear, not afraid to lose, not shaped by someone else's decision. You're not pretending not to care. You just know. My value doesn't shrink because someone else can't see it. You can feel the sting. You can admit it hurts, but you don't. And collapse. You don't beg. You don't lower yourself just to be kept. You walk away, not to prove a point, but to protect your peace. And in doing so, you leave behind something unforgettable, not because you tried to impress, but because you knew how to let go without losing yourself. And here's what happens next, almost like clockwork. She starts to wonder, why did he take that so well? How can someone be so calm in the face of goodbye? And now, you've become a mystery, because in a world full of men who chase, beg, and explain, the man who doesn't flinch becomes the man she can't quite forget. Which leads us to something deeper, mystery and unpredictability. When you're not easy to read, you become worth discovering. Number 9, mystery and unpredictability. When you're hard to read, you become worth discovering. He hadn't posted anything all week. Then suddenly, one photo. He was standing on a mountaintop, smiling, eyes calm. No caption, no explanation. And she couldn't stop thinking about him. I used to work with a guy named Elijah. He wasn't the loudest in the room. Didn't share much about his weekends. Didn't talk about his plans. But there was something different about him. Something. Quietly magnetic. Every Monday he'd show up with a peaceful gaze and mud on his hiking boots. One day I asked, "What did you do this weekend?" He smiled and replied, "Turned off my phone for 2 days. Climbed a mountain." Then he said nothing. Else the women in our office always mentioned him, not because of how he looked, but because of something they couldn't quite explain. He's mysterious, but not cold. Calm, but never boring. We're drawn to what we don't fully understand. That's human nature. We crave discovery, and when someone reveals everything too soon, they unknowingly end their own story. Most men think connection means constant sharing, over-explaining, always being available, always talking. But here's the truth. Women aren't looking for a book they can finish in one night. They're pulled toward the kind of man whose story unfolds slowly, layer by layer. Someone they want to read again because they can't predict the next page. Let me give you a simple comparison. One man is always online, replies instantly, says, "You're my everything," after 2 dates. Another man, he shows he cares, but he has his own life. He disappears from time to time, not to play games, but because he's actually building something offline. And when he returns, he brings a story, like someone who's been living deeply in a world she hasn't touched. Yet, which man do you think stays in her mind longer? Mystery isn't manipulation. It's knowing what to hold back, not to control others, but to invite them in slowly. Being unpredictable doesn't mean being chaotic. It means you don't move by the world's rhythm. You move by your own. You're not performing. You're simply alive in a way that most people aren't. You don't need flashy posts. You don't need clever lines. You just need a life so full that even in silence, you're still fascinating. The lesson, you don't need to be mysterious on purpose. You just need to live a life that's rich, deep, and real, even when no one's watching. And when people finally do watch, they can't look away. Not because you're loud, but because you're layered, because you're not easy to read, and that makes you worth discovering. But there's something important you need to know. You can't truly become mysterious if you're constantly chasing every impulse, every pleasure, every desire, because mystery requires self-restraint. And that's what we'll uncover next. Number 10, self-control over desires. Mastering impulse is the peak of masculine power. He saw her walk in, stunning, radiant. But he didn't rush. He didn't chase. He smiled and looked away. Not because he didn't want her, but because he wanted something greater than a moment of pleasure. A mentor once told me, the difference between a boy and a man isn't strength. It's the ability to say no to what everyone else says yes to. That stayed with me, because at 25 I thought being a man meant chasing what I wanted without hesitation. A beautiful woman, a wild night, a rush of excitement in the moment. But every time I chose instant desire over long-term direction, I lost a piece of myself. The Stoics taught, don't become a slave to what you cannot control, especially your desires. Desire isn't bad. Sex isn't wrong. The need for connection is human. But when these impulses start to dictate your behavior, that's when power turns into weakness. When you send desperate texts just because she's beautiful. When you lower your standards just to keep someone close. When you lose your calm because your body screams for pleasure. You've handed the keys of your masculinity to something outside of you. Look at the men women deeply respect. They may want, but they don't rush. They may feel desire, but they don't collapse into it. They live fully, but their choices aren't ruled by urges. They are ruled by vision because they understand this truth. No fleeting feeling is worth losing the respect I have for myself. The strongest man is not the one who conquers every woman. It's the one who can walk away even when his body begs him to stay. If that moment isn't aligned with who he is becoming, that is self-mastery. Not denying the fire, but learning to hold it without letting it burn your house down. I've known men who turned lust into leadership, who turned craving into creativity, who turned "I want it now" into "not yet." I'm building something greater, and in that pause, they found power because when you no longer follow every desire, you start leading your life. Here's the truth. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to memorize every dating rule. You don't need to prove your worth. You just need to stay silent when it's wise, walk away when you're disrespected, live for something bigger than yourself, and hold yourself steady, especially when instinct screams, that's the man this world needs, not the one who pleases everyone, but the one who lives clearly, deeply, and unmoved. And if you've ever struggled with these things, you're not alone. Every man on the path to strength has felt the same pull, but the difference between where you are now and the man you are becoming is the space between the urge and what you choose to do with it. If this spoke to you, drop a comment below. You don't have to explain. You don't have to be loud. Just say, I'm building discipline, and know there's a brotherhood of men out there doing the same. Here's final message. Maybe you're not the smartest man in the room. Maybe you're not rich, not tall, not what the internet calls alpha. But if you can, stay calm in the storm, walk away instead of cling, live for something bigger than yourself, and master your impulses in silence. You're already the kind of man this world needs, and the kind of man women quietly respect. You don't need to perform. You don't need tricks. You don't need to play games. You just need to master yourself, because when you're truly solid on the inside, you don't have to prove anything. People feel it without you saying a word. Live like a mountain. You don't have to shout, and yet everyone looks up to you. Marcus Aurelius, or signed simply a Stoic brother. If this message touched something in you, if you've ever been the man who gave too much, tried too hard, loved too deeply, and still got hurt, just know you're not alone. Leave a dot, a word, or simply write, I'm on the journey, because maybe, somewhere out there, another man needs to read what you just wrote.